Well, where to begin? Michigan's senior U.S. Senator Gary Peters not seeking a third term in 2026. We have 2 U.S. senators. There are 50 in America. It's the most exclusive club in the world, and he's out. There are several seeking that seat, as you might imagine, some serious and some not so serious, and that will be the main subject we will be talking about this morning. Tim McGuire is here, the longtime executive director of the Michigan Association of Counties. At some point, we will get to your personal experiences with Gary Peters and what he was like for you as a lobbyist in the office. But were you surprised by the news?
I wasn't so much shocked. It was just, like you say, a real surprise because he had worked so hard to get that seat and, worked his way up in the Senate. So it was. It wasn't a shocker, and I really understand that after a while, you're in the public eye and you just want some peace and tranquility, and that's a very tough job. You're thinking about getting on an airplane every week to go into Washington and then coming back home to meet with constituents and do the public service work. It's not an easy task, and those guys are on all the time.
We read in the Detroit News that he's got a grandson that lives out west, and so that would make it even trickier if you're going to go back to Michigan and service, your constituents, and then you have your family constituency spread across the country, too. Dave Dulio is the director for the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University, distinguished professor in the Political Science Department, and a candidate for U.S. Senate or not, sir?
That's a firm no from me, Michael Patrick. Good morning.
Breaking news, Tony Cuthbert. Dave Dulio has announced he will not be seeking the United States Senate seat. We've got to ask everybody because apparently there are a lot of people who are interested in. Dave Dulio is out, and I think you heard it here first. Thank you very much for that announcement. And before we start the derby of who will replace him, what about Gary Peters? I saw one nonpartisan group said he was one of the most effective members of the United States Senate, not once but twice.
That's my recollection as well, and he certainly touted that recognition in his last campaign, and I think that there's evidence for it. He, as we just heard, has risen in the ranks in the U.S. Senate as now a member of the very powerful Appropriations Committee. He is somebody who's run the Democrats' campaign arm in the Senate the last 2 cycles. So he has power and influence. He has prestige. And frankly, he's a legislator in what I would describe as the prime of his career. And to see somebody step away from that is unusual, maybe refreshing. And I think that's why everybody in Michigan was caught off guard by this yesterday.
Well, we played his 4-minute goodbye speech, which he posted online yesterday, and then we will ask him, of course, when we get a chance to speak to him in person about his decision. And then one thing that crossed my mind this morning is if you want to go, why not just go now and then let the governor appoint your successor? I mean, obviously you would still have an election in 2 years, but it would, if you want to keep that seat a D, wouldn't that be a crafty way to do it?
Yes, I think that would be a crafty way to do it. I think this decision now gives everybody a chance to breathe, and it doesn't impact the race for the Democratic nomination to succeed him. And I say impact because if he were to resign and Gretchen Whitmer were to appoint a successor, if that person ran in 2 years, they would be running from a position of strength and incumbency and would probably be favored to win that Democratic nomination, no matter who else was in it. So I think that this levels the playing field for whoever comes next.
It wouldn't be Gretchen Whitmer, would it?
Well, she says no, and that was, I think, another surprise, really. I think, she certainly has aspirations beyond Michigan, and, serving in the Senate, even if it was for a short time, is a powerful platform. And we can just look back to Barack Obama, who did not serve a full term in the U.S. Senate before he ran for president and won.
Oh, so the governor was asked and said she won't do that. I guess it's I don't know. I hear different things about her aspirations beyond Michigan, but if the party calls, she's always answered them one way or another.
Very true. Yes, absolutely.
So she can say, I didn't really want to do it, but they needed me.
If there's a draft Gretsch campaign, I think that it would be noticed. Let's put it that way.
Which is more, prestigious and effective, a job, a governor or a U.S. senator?
Oh, gosh, I think they're so different, right? I mean, and in fact, that might, now that you say that could be a calculation for our governor. I think it's very difficult for folks who are used to being in an executive role, calling the shots, sort of making decisions, to go into a legislative role where, even though, and you're right, the U.S. Senate is the most exclusive club that we have, but you're still one of 100 with relatively, let's say, less power than an executive. So and we've seen folks make that transition, and it's been difficult for many. So maybe that was a consideration.
I still get a kick out of Rod Blagojevich, who was the governor of Illinois. You know what I'm going to say because I can hear you laughing. When he got a chance to appoint Barack Obama's successor and he was taped, and he said, this is a damned valuable thing here I've got, And I'm paraphrasing, but his point was when he got to appoint someone, he wanted a little something in return for it seemed like.
He certainly did, and he earned his nickname Hot Rod in Illinois, and I think are we surprised that Illinois is, at least back then, right, another example of corruption in that state?
I wonder if Donald Trump being president had something to do with Senator Peters' decision.
I think it's anything's possible. I do think that it's a transition of sorts to go from the majority in a chamber to the minority. Although the way the U.S. Senate runs, members of the minority party do have more of an impact, or can have more of an impact on policy making than those in the minority in, say, the U.S. House, where they just show up and get their teeth kicked in every day. But it's definitely a different scenario and context to go from majority to minority.
I know he wasn't flashy and he wasn't on the talk shows all that often and very exciting and everything, but with Gary Peters gone, does Michigan lose some juice in D.C.?
There's no question about it, and his seat on the Appropriations Committee is coveted, as you know, and it is powerful. And I think you make a really good point about sort of his approach to representation and governing. And us nerdy political scientists have a distinction that we like to make between legislators that we call workhorses versus show horses. And Gary Peters was always in the workhorse category.
You're not that nerdy. Dave Dulio, Oakland University. Thank you, Professor. Michael Patrick Shields through the AT&T microphones.